So 50 and 50, here we go. It's housing, and again, thanks to Netix for sponsoring these for the next 50 days. I suppose housing is something I could talk about for a long time. With all these videos and articles, I'm trying to cover as much as I can, but you know, they could be much more detailed. But when I think about housing, particularly in our seasonal grazing systems in Ireland, this is something I've been using for a long time. The yearly cycle, Christmas time, summertime, and what happens on farm at certain times of the year that we can impact to prevent disease, manage animal health. And we have a window which is relatively short in our farming systems for housing. And I suppose it's still a critical period where cows are calving indoors, where lambing is occurring indoors. So getting the environment of the animals right is really important. I have this theory about optimizing biology, which is really about, I suppose, really understanding what the wants and needs, behaviours of animals are, and optimizing them in systems, because if we can do that, we have more productive and healthier animals. So even with finishing cattle, getting that environment right is really key. Some of the key aspects of animal health are nutrition, the environment, herd health, obviously, and then managing the people and how we work with those animals are key. So one thing when it comes to ventilation and housing, is a very important thing to understand, is the stack effect. And ruminant animals have a rumen which is like almost like a little a furnace inside. They're producing so much heat, that microbial digestion, and that heat that's produced by ruminants has to rise, and that rising heat in the shed, that's why we use an outlet for that heat to escape, and that creates the stack effect where cold or fresh air is drawn into that system through inlets. So that's really a key principle to understand when you look at housing, getting outlets right, getting inlets right. Where the challenge is where we add sheds onto this, that can be a challenge to get airflow correctly. I suppose with calves, and I'll talk about them on their own, they don't produce a lot of heat, and they're a challenge in themselves, particularly dairy calves. With your suckler cow with the calf with them, indoors, always looking for areas maybe that the calves can go to a lie-off area, that we can control that environment a little bit better, is something that's worth thinking about. Again, there's so much I could cover on housing. These are just some key principles. A lot of people ask me my opinion on outdoor cubicles in the Irish system, and I think outdoor cubicles work fine once we don't have the weather variables that we have. And I've always said to farmers who put them in, just have a contingency plan to put a roof on an outdoor cubicle, because I'm not too worried about cows particularly getting cold, because they produce so much heat. I actually love sheds that are more open for adult animals, but just to reduce moisture in these cubicles, and particularly in mastitis control, I think a roof is that's my opinion on that. So if I was to look at 5 key things that I would look at and assess going into a housing system, these are them, and they're not in order now, but fresh air, comfort, space, hygiene and drainage. They're the key things. Number one, I'd probably say space. Again, if you look at space and look at our animals outdoors, and we're very lucrative animals outdoors for the vast majority of the year, what are their behaviours outside? How much time do they spend lying down? What do they want behaviour wise? Remember, they're a herd species, all those sort of things. So, and when it comes to calves and lambs and ewes, they're the exact same. So having enough space to optimise that biology indoors is really critical for me. And then there's animals that are in that system, particularly cows transitioning at calving time, ewes coming up to lambing time, calves, young calves. Having space can make such a difference. The next big one I would say, probably rating, if I go into a shed, would be looking at fresh air. And fresh air is very simple. It's a natural disinfectant. It contains a thing called ozone, which is, will kill bugs and bacteria in sheds. And maximising fresh air in sheds is really important. Obviously avoiding drafts. Now, fresh air, when it comes to adult animals, they're not as prone to the cold. I tend to open up sheds, but then when we get to calves, it can be more difficult to manage that. But fresh air, and the one thing about fresh air is we can assess that very simply with ourselves. And we've got a great tool, and it's our nose, for just having a smell and seeing what air is like in sheds. Number 3 is comfort. And what does that mean? Again, optimising biology. Cows particularly, for example, will lie down 12 to 14 hours a day indoors if they can. And when they lie down, they're ruminating. That's a really important part of their metabolic functioning for the day. So if you can maximise lying times, it's brilliant. And that's down to the space that they have to lie down in, the surface that they're lying down in. For cows, for example, each cow is a cubicle. That cubicle is the correct size. Also, I suppose comfort, when you look at younger animals, is temperature. So obviously ruminants are prone to heat stress, but in our country where we see the challenge is more so with cold, particularly with calves. So getting that right, comfortable animals, the bedding that they're on. You know, I'm a huge fan of straw. My straw rule is simple: put in loads of straw, as much as you can, and add 50% more. It solves a lot of problems. Number 4 is hygiene within sheds. All through this video series I'm going to be talking about infectious diseases. A key principle I want people to remember and understand is when we talk about disease, it's always about maximizing immunity and reducing down the infection pressure. And we're all learning at the moment through coronavirus, and this is part of the reason I suppose I'm doing this series. I'm at home in the office, we're all learning about disease spread, but infection pressure is reducing down the amount of infection in the environment, and we're doing that by washing our hands, keeping a distance. So in houses, anything we can do to improve hygiene, using scrapers, actually fresh air and hygiene are linked, because fresh air will dry out sheds to keep them clean. And finally, the one we don't talk a lot about, and I mentioned it previously, is drainage. So slats, animals on slats obviously, and if you talk about comfort as well there, just on slats, having rubber matting on slats definitely I'm a huge fan of that. Anything to help make animals comfortable will mean they'll eat more, they'll be more productive. But drainage itself, okay, slats manage, but a lot of our floors are solid floors. You know, getting drainage right so there's a flow and taking moisture away. Remember, moisture is the enemy. If we have a build up of moisture in sheds, it leads to increased humidity, which can increase the risk of pneumonia. If we look at increased moisture on the ground with cows, it can be mastitis, lameness with sheep, lameness with cattle. So there are 5 key things that I will look at when I look at a shed. I'm just trying to think about 5 things this morning that would be really important. Okay, so remember, we can go into a house, we can assess a shed, use our nose, use our eyes, looking at calves, are they bunched together, how comfortable the animals look. We can use smoke bombs to watch airflow and fresh air. Things like cobwebs will tell you a lot about whether there's fresh air movement or not. And you know, one of the things I'm looking to get is an actual bacterial counter, digital bacterial counter, to measure bacterial load in the environment, because I think it's really valuable. And I suppose simple things like air velocity, you know, just throwing bits of straw up in the air, see how far it goes. We can do simple things to assess sheds. Okay, so if I look at calves, and they're worth pointing out their own, again, sorry my drawings aren't great, but again, calves in pens, looking at these key things, how much space have they got, looking at, they're not producing a lot of heat for the stack effect. So we're looking really at fresh air getting through sheds, and you know, inlets become really important. We don't want drafts on calves obviously, but we still want fresh air. And this is where your mechanical ventilation, like your fans, your tunnels, they work well in calf housing. Remember, with calves as well, moisture is the enemy. I really am a massive fan of Yorkshire boarding for calf housing. And remember, if you are building calf housing, having the long axis of your shed facing into prevailing wind, so we get that air flow through sheds and still avoiding drafts. Warmth is really important for calves, so maximizing having them nice and warm in the winter time, but still getting fresh air in there is really critical. Now, in Irish farms at the moment, the weather is warming up. If calves are indoors, we need to open up sheds. So no, not everyone has to build new sheds, but there is loads of ways we can assess sheds, go in and think about how can we maximize a lot of these things to make for better animal health and performance. Just quickly on lambs and ewes. Again, fresh air, space for ewes is really important, particularly when we talk about feed space. Again, drainage is really, really important, because if you think about moisture build up in sheep sheds, a lot of the times we get foot rot, fouls and scalds will be indoors with ewes. So again, if we can do anything to improve the environment of the ewe, it's massive. Again, look, I feel like I'm talking at 100 miles an hour, because housing, there's so much to it, but they're the key things. When I go into a shed, I'm thinking about fresh air, comfort, space, hygiene and drainage. Optimize biology and we get better results. Okay, just my thought for the day. Get out of the house. We're all self-isolating at the moment, or you know, trying to practice self-distancing. I think it's an important time for all of us, particularly rural communities, to remember the people who are on their own, who need that extra little bit of help, and it's up to all of us. I suppose this is a social solidarity movement that we can all support each other while we are self-distancing, not to forget people. And what a time in farmers, and I've talked to a lot of people who've nowhere to go. We fight each other in the house, we have a garden, but like, think of all the space you have out the back of your house to get out and just do a little bit of exercise outside your normal routine. Farmers are going to be saying to me, we're exercising all day anyway, but yeah, you're very, very lucky in ways to have it. Don't forget the people who are isolated on their own. No one should feel alone at this time. I think that's a key message today. That's my thought for today. So happy, safe farming, everybody.